Hi everyone, welcome back to our channel Code for Tech Solutions. Today in this video we are going to create a new React.js application using React Data Table component, and using this library we are going to implement some key functionalities like sort, filter and pagination. So for this to achieve, instead of using the static data, we are going to create one table and database on the MySQL side, and we are going to create one database and table to store the atom data on the MySQL side. Next thing, like we are going to create one Node.js backend application, and we are going to create one GET API which will fetch the data from the MySQL database tables. And finally, on the front end side, client side, we are going to create one React.js application which will consume the data, or which will retrieve the data from the backend application and render the data and columns in the table using this React Data Table component and styled components library. So this is about the points which we are going to cover in this video. So let us start with our first point, like we will create one database and table on the MySQL side. So to create a database and tables, we are going to use exam control panel, which is an user interface to create database and tables for MySQL. So here is the interface, and here we can click on new button to create a new database. We can create one new database with name atom underscore master. You can see the database is created. Now to create a table inside this, we can enter the table name, and these are the number of columns. We can enter 4 number of columns, and we can click on create button. Here we can mention all the column names, like first we need atom id, which is an integer data type, and we can define some length as in 10. Next is a name, column name, which is a varchar, and we can define some length of 90. Next we have category, which is again varchar, we can define some length as a 90. And next is a brand, which is again varchar data type, and we can define length as a 90. So we have 4 different columns with these data types, and we can click on save button to create a new table. So we have created atom table inside atom underscore master database with these columns, like we have name, atom id, category and brand. Fine. Now let us add, we need enough number of records to see our pagination search and search filter and sorting working. So we can add the records in this table. So we can click on insert button. So I have some data ready, like I have these values, these records we can add inside values. You can click on go button. We can see 18 rows are inserted into the table. Now we can click on select query to check if the data is added. Fine, we have enough number of records now. Now let us create our backend application using Node.js. Now here let me open the VS Code first. Fine. We can create one folder with name, let's say test server. We can go to this test server, and we can initialize our application using command npm init-y. We can see this test-server is first empty. We have just created package.json. Now we need to install all the dependencies which we are going to use, like we are going to use Express framework, Pose, Node-man and MySQL2. So this Express is a Node.js backend framework which we are going to use for developing our application. Course dependency is with which we are going to resolve the origin course related issues, like with because we are going to give a call from our client application to the backend application. So course is needed. Node-man, with which like it will keep on tracking the changes of the code, so we do not need to rebuild our application. With MySQL2, like we are going to connect with our MySQL database. So this is the library we need to use to connect to our MySQL database. Fine. So we can cross check if all the dependencies added under dependencies. Fine. Now let us create one file with name server.js. So here we need to add all the constant or import all the modules, like we require express framework. Next thing, we need one constant for course. Next, we need one constant for app. Next, we need constant for port, process.environment.port, or we can specify some specific port like 3000. One more constant we need, like it's a mysql 2, and this is the latest module of mysql we are going to import. Fine. So these are the required modules which we are going to use. Now next thing, like our app is going to use express.json. Next, app is going to use course. Fine. Next thing, now we can add our listen method. This will listen to port, and this is the callback in case of error. We are going to log the message like our server is running on port, and this is the port which we are going to add. Fine, seems good. Now next thing, like this server.js, now we need to add this server.js in package.json file, because by default it is using index.js. So we have added that part. We need to add the start script, and for start script we need to add node1. It's a server.js. Fine, seems good. Next thing, now we can run our application. We need to save all the changes first. Now we can run our application using command npm start. Fine, it is showing the message server is running fine on port 3000. This is the port on which our application is running, node.js application. Fine. Next thing, like we need to add our connection logic with which we are going to connect with our mysql database. So for that we can define one constant, like let's say it's a pool, and here is our mysql2, and here we can create one pool, and inside which we can mention all the attributes of the database, like we are going to use host as a local host. Next, user, and user in my case it's a root. You need to enter your username and password, what you have set while creating or installing the mysql database, or in case if you have created a custom user account, then you can use that username and password. Fine. Next thing, like we can use a database, and here our database name is atom_master, and next we need to give the port. In my case it is 3307, and one more thing, we can add connection limit as in 10. Fine, seems good. You can cross verify it once if you are using the right attributes. Like for database we can cross check, we are using atom_master. Fine, seems good. And this is the same root, and this is the password, and this is the host. Now let us add one more thing, like we can call we can get the connection on the pool, and here we can mention our callback like error object and connection, and if there is error we can simply throw the error, or in case of uh, or else we can log the message like connected to database successfully. Fine, seems good. And once we are done with our connection, we can release the connection. Seems good. Fine, we can see we have connected to database successfully with these attributes, like we have this host, user, password, database, port. With this we have successfully connected to our mysql database. Fine, next thing, like we can create one get API. To create one get API, we can use get method, and here we can mention the endpoint which we are going to use. Let's say it's an atoms, and here is a callback for request and response. And we can say we can define one constant for SQL. We can mention it's an select star from, and this is our table name, which is atom. Next thing, we can call query method on pool, and here we need to pass this SQL, and there is an error and result callback. And if there is an error, we are going to return response.json, the error object we need to pass, or else we are going to return response.json, it's an result object. Seems good now. Fine. Now let us check this API if it is working as expected or not. Now let me restart our application. We have made lot of code changes. Fine. Now let us open the postman first, and here we need to select the get method, and here is the port, and this is the endpoint. This is atoms, and we are going to use get method. Here click on body raw, here you can select the JSON. Now we can click on send button. Yes, we can see all the records is getting displayed by this get API. Now the get API is working fine. We have fetched all the records from the database. Now next thing, like we can create our front-end application using React application, and we are going to use the React table data component. Fine. So let us add one terminal. Now here we can create our React application using command npm create with @latest, and here we can mention our React application name. Let's say test-web. We can select the React option and JavaScript, and we can go to our project folder. We can install the dependencies using command npm install. Next thing, like we can run our application using command npm run dev. We can see our application is running fine. Now let us do one thing here. We need to install all the required dependencies, like we are going to use React table data component styled components, and we are going to use Axios library to give a call to our backend APIs. Like we have written one get API in Node.js side, we are going to give a call using this Axios library. React table data component. React, sorry, there was a typo. It should be React data table component. Fine. Fine. We can cross check in package.json, and we can see Axios is included React data table component, and this is the styled component. Fine. Now let us create our, now let us add the code inside this. First of all, we can remove everything. So let us run our application and check. And seems good. Now here we can clear everything from app.jsx so that we can make a fresh start. We can clear this content as well, unused variables, unused imports, fine, we can save it. And similar way we can remove everything from app.css, fine. Now we have cleared everything. Now let us start adding our actual code. So here we first need to import our data table which we are going to use from our React data table component. And here, okay, here we can add some class name like container empty5, and here we can use our data table. Now this data table needs like columns and data, so we can define one constant for columns, and here we can write first column with name, and here is our name which is atom id, and it has a selector as well, selector which is a row dot name, fine. So this is about the first column. This name will get displayed in the browser, and this is the selector through which we are going to select or access, fine. We require 3 more columns. First is a atom id, next is a name, sorry, here it should be atom id, this is name, and this is the category, and this is the brand, and we can add, fine. So we have 4 different columns, fine. Next thing, we have added all the column headers and column. Now next thing, we can add our one constant for data like we are going to store get the atoms, and we need to add the atom variable as well as the function to set atoms here, and we can use state, it's an blank array, fine. Now we can save it. Next thing, we are going to use these columns, and we can add column set here. Next we are going to use a data part. For data part we are going to use atoms, fine. Now the atoms are empty. Now there are no atoms, so first we need to give a call to our API. So for that we are going to define one method like get all atoms, and here is our method which will use Axios. So we need to import the Axios first, import Axios from Axios, fine. And here we are going to give call to our get method, and here we are going to mention the URL which we are going to use, like it's a http localhost 3000 and our endpoint. So no need and our endpoint, here is our endpoint which is atoms in our case. So if you want to cross check, you can open the server file, and this is the atoms endpoint, fine. Now next thing, like we can add then, and here is our response callback, and here we can log the response dot data, and here we can call set items method like response dot data. Fine. So what we have done, this is our get all items method, which will give a call to our backend API, which we have written on the Node.js application, and we will get the data in response, and that data we are going to set as an atom. Fine. Next thing, like we have declared our method, but we have not given a call, so we can use effect, and here we can give a call to our get all items method. Fine. And here we can initialize it with some array. Seems good. We can see once we save this, the data is getting rendered as expected. Now all these records which are present into the database side, now it is visible. These are the records. Where are the records? Like this is, sorry, this is our, so here if we click on this one, these are the records, like same records we have fetched in the table, and we are going to use the React data table component. So now the column and data we have rendered. Now next thing, like we can make it, let's say if we want to make it selectable, so we can add it here, we can add selectable rows. Fine. Here is it is appearing select all or specific records we can select using this selectable rows. Next thing, like if we want to implement the pagination part, or so before we do, like here you can see, once we scroll down, the header is going up, and we do not know like which header of this row data or cell. So we need to fix this, like we can use fixed header, so that the header will get fixed. Now we can see we it is showing the header, like which entry is of which header, like this cell is of category, this this cell is for name, cell value. Fine. So this is the fixed header. Now next thing, we can add the pagination part as well. Now we can simply add the pagination, so, and we can save it. Now we can see it is showing 10 records per page, and the pagination is applied to this data. Now if we click on next button, it will show the next 10 pages, 10 records as such. If we click on previous, it will show the previous 10 records on the previous page. Fine. So our pagination is working fine, selected rows as well. Now if we want to apply the sorting logic, so what we can do, here is our columns. Now here we can add the sortable, and we can make it as a true. So similar way we can add for rest of the columns. Fine, we can save it. Now we can check this is getting sorted in ascending or descending order. Fine, seems good. This is for category and this is for brand. Now our sorting also working fine for this data. Now next and final thing, we are going to implement the search filter functionality. So for that filter, like this is the atoms data, so we can add one more constant which will hold the filtered atoms, like let's say so this is the filtered atoms it will hold, and here is the function which will set this filtered atoms. Fine. Now here where we set the data, original data, here also we need to set the filtered atoms, like here So this is the data which we are getting from the API, and the same data it initially we are setting whole data. So there is no filter, means we are displaying whole data. Now next thing, like here we can add one input it here. Okay, so here we can add one input field, input search, and we can mention as an input search as a name and same as an ID, and we can add placeholder as well. Here we can mention search atoms here, and we can save. We can see it is appearing. So here we can mention some class name as an text start. Fine. Now we have this input box. Now whenever we enter something and on we need to capture the event, like this is the on change event we need to handle, and here is our handle search functionality. We need to define one function which will handle the change or search functionality. So here we can mention the function, let's say handle search, and this is the event. Now here we can define one constant which will hold the filtered data, and here we are going to iterate on atoms, and we can call filter method on this. And here for each row we are going to like row dot name dot, here we can use two lowercase, and here we can mention includes, and here we can mention what it should compare check with, like e dot target dot value dot, here again we can use two lowercase, so that it everything like the so both the inputs should be in lowercase, so that it will check whether it includes or not. Fine. So this is about the name. Now next thing, here we can set filtered items, because this is the filtered list. We need to set it to this as an set filtered items, and with this we can save it. Now let us check by adding, this is for name, we have added only for name. Okay, so let us check what is happening. This is the function event constant atoms dot filter row dot name to lowercase, and it includes e dot target dot value dot to lowercase, and this is the end of fine. It is constant filter the data. And set filtered items we are calling, and setting the filtered data. Fine. Okay, so actually earlier it was showing the atoms. Instead of showing the atoms, we need to show the filtered data it here, because now every time it will show the original data. So that is not the case. We need to show the filtered data. Fine. Now let us check. So we can see it is filtering out let's say pixel. Fine. Mac seems good. It is filtering on the name basis. Now if you want to filter on atom ID, sorry, if you want to filter on category, it is not filtering, because we have not added filter logic for category and brand, so we can simply add for these two as well. We can simply copy this logic, and here we can add one or and here we can mention the next column which we want to apply the filter to. This is the category. Similar way, here we can add one more by this or functionality or operator, and this is the brand, and we can save it. Now we have applied filter to all the three columns. Now if we refresh this, now if let's check for smartphone, seems good. Now let us check for entering the Google, seems good. Now the filter is applicable to all the columns like name, category and brand. So with this, like, we are done with our all the functionalities, core functionalities like filter, sorting and pagination part. So for this application we have used our component like which is React data table component, and rendered columns and data using this library, and we have implemented all the functionalities like search, filter, pagination and sorting. So with this we are done with all the functionalities and points which we have discussed before we start this video. I will request you to please like and subscribe the same. So thank you so much for watching this video.